What's up, guys? It is that time of the year again for another Nightbreed review. Now, I've done two of these already. One of them was just comparing the theatrical version to the director's cut. And that one was one of my favorite reviews that I've ever done because I really enjoy Nightbreed. It is probably my favorite horror movie. There's so much going on there. There's so much depth. And what really makes it interesting is that there are so many cuts of this film that are just floating around. Now, the second video I did was when I tracked down the way too expensive Cabal Cut that was put out some years back. And this one, I'm actually going to be going one step further, and we're going to be reviewing Nightbreed, the ultimate Cabal Cut. As mentioned in my other videos, Nightbreed went through so many reshoots back when it was made in 1990. So much so that they wanted to turn this monster movie that Clive Barker was making and turn it into something that it was not, which was like a slasher film in a way. Even though there's elements of a slasher film there, the studio wanted it completely changed, and a lot of things was left on the cutting room floor, and the end result, the theatrical version, isn't exactly the version that most people prefer, especially Clive Barker. Now, what happened was, for so many years, they eventually found this like VHS work print of it that had all of this footage that was very, very poor footage, but it was stuff that just didn't exist before. And they started finding more and more sources, and this Cabal Cut was known as like the holy grail for horror fans. And eventually, big studios got a hold of it who had the rights to Nightbreed on home media and decided to clean up all the footage that they could, put together these different pieces, get Clive Barker in to help create this director's cut, and that's what they put out and is what probably most readily available for most consumers right now. That is the preferred version of Nightbreed, but that didn't use all the footage that they found before. So there was always rumors that another Cabal Cut was going to come out with just had all the footage. And once they did put that out, there's then talks around 2019, oh, we found a 3-hour plus cut of Nightbreed that's called the ultimate Cabal Cut that had all this other footage added in. And to put it in perspective, this one is 3 hours and 19 minutes. The Cabal Cut was 2 hours and 25 minutes. That's a lot of extra footage that people have not only haven't seen, but also that's a long movie. And what it comes down to, if you don't want to watch the rest of this review, this movie is basically if you took pretty much every single thing filmed in the movie and sometimes multiple takes of the same cut and stuck it all together. This is a movie that is in dire need of being edited down. 3 hour plus is too long for a horror movie. Even this, I would say 2 hours is maximum it should be. And even though there's a lot of story there, there's so much that just, as I'll get into, that just doesn't need to be there. As a bonus feature on a Blu-ray or DVD, all these deleted scenes would be spectacular and a lot of fun to watch, but all edited together, it doesn't work. So I stick with the director's cut is still the preferred version, but this didn't cost me a lot to find. I'm not sure how legal it is to find. I'll put a link in the description of where I got it, but it was pretty cheap. So I would say instead of the Cabal Cut, which is so expensive and honestly not worth the price, this one, if you want to see all these extra scenes, is worth the price. So the best way I can describe this movie is it's a Cabal Cut just with some extra footage. And like the Cabal Cut, it isn't just some grainy VHS work print the entire time. This includes all of the improved footage from the director's cut, and it all looks really good except for the new scenes. Now, there are times in these new scenes where there is no dialogue. And the background noise is so loud that every time, if there is dialogue, they would cut in the dialogue and then cut out and it would just be silence. There's other times you can tell they just added in music from a different part of the movie just to fill it in. It's not like a new score was made. And there is a lot of just, honestly, hard to watch scenes where there was not even any dialogue, not any sound, that their text just went on screen of what they were saying according to the script. Now, the shooting script for Nightbreed was used as the basis for this. And that shooting script follows, honestly, the Cabal story that I talked about in my first video very well. This really is probably the best adaptation you can make of Cabal, the story. And it's just, there's a lot there. It doesn't all need to be there. And even though it is cool to see these scenes that did not exist, even in the Cabal Cut when it was put out, as a viewing experience, it just falls flat. You shouldn't have to have no sound whatsoever and just rely on the words coming on the screen. Like, yes, they know they're subtitled, but these, it's not even like impactful scenes. It would just be like scenes in the opening where they're like expanding upon Boone and like kind of like his mental illness that I think is touched upon in this version more than any other version, and was a big part of Cabal. Because in Nightbreed, Boone thinks that he's crazy. That's why he's so easily convinced by Decker. And with all of that, no other version quite convinces me that Boone thinks that he's crazy, except this one, where he really is kind of like opening up his emotions to Laurie and is becoming very vulnerable because he thinks he's past this. But then the moment Decker gets back in his mind, he's like, okay, yeah, maybe I am crazy. And the extra footage for that, again, is really cool. I like that they have it, but it should have existed as like a deleted scene on another like edition of Nightbreed that came out, not this very like iffy version of the Ultimate Cabal Cut. But overall, it does follow Cabal, like the Cabal Cut, very closely. And another thing that I just wanted to put out, that this isn't new to the Ultimate Cabal Cut, but it is new to me as a viewer of Nightbreed. I have become obsessed with Oingo Boingo in the last year since my last review, and I just, anything and everything Danny Elfman, I am just falling in love with. And he's the one who did the score for this. So his music style, he quickly became like my favorite composer. And not only that, but Oingo Boingo, if you don't listen to it, is one of the most fun and entertaining and unique bands I've heard out there. They're definitely part of like that new wave kind of sound, but I honestly can't but put them in a genre too well because they're just so out there. And it honestly feels just like performance art is what a lot of Oingo Boingo feels like. So I totally recommend the score to this movie. It is amazing. The drum beats that feel so tribal really goes together well with just like the gothic tone that he's putting out there. So I am 100% on board with this soundtrack, and if I did not say that enough before, it is one of the best parts of this movie. So along with some scenes not having audio and then also have to read it on the screen, there are times when the audio is just out of sync. And I think the worst offender of this is when they have the scene of Laurie singing, which wasn't a Cabal Cut. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but it's like shows like what she does during her day, because you never actually knew what she really did before in like the theatrical and director's cut. Now in this Ultimate Cabal Cut, I swear that the audio is a little bit off, and I don't think it was like that in the Cabal Cut. I could be wrong. I haven't seen it since last year, but it just, something about it just didn't really sit well with me, because the rest of the movie wasn't too bad with like the audio syncing, but this one just, it was a very bad offender of it. And then with that, most of the original voices for the actors were concluded, because I know, for example, Doug Bradley's character, he definitely had his voice redubbed, and there was other characters in the story. But there are times when they have their original voice, but because they use so many different sources, I swear I heard some of their like redubbed voices that were more commonly used. And that was, it kind of threw me off, because it really should just be one. And it kind of takes you out of it, because, like, yes, I know that's the character who's supposed to be talking. I've heard them speak like that before, but they're not speaking like that right now. Another inconsistency would be how every now and then there would be, like, the same line repeated right after each other, just from a different angle. And I feel like they just wanted every single bit of footage they had thrown together in this movie, and it doesn't feel coherent. And there's times, like, there was a line, a little time has passed, and then the same character said the line, but from like a different angle, where you could see him instead of just listening to him, and it just, and you can tell it was a different take even, because of just the intonation of the way he's saying it. So again, it feels like they had to have known that. Since this is such a passion project, I really feel like they just wanted to include it because it was just other footage that other people haven't seen, which, again, I know I've been saying this, it's a good story, but there's just too much of it here. I love that people are obsessed with Nightbreed, but to the extent of basically putting out a work print, it just feels like a little too much. After the intro, where we get a lot more scenes between Laurie and Boone and just really establishing a relationship, and also Boone like believing that he is crazy, Most of the middle of the movie, besides some scenes that are extended a bit and some other scenes added in there, it's basically the same thing. I couldn't really tell much of a difference. It wasn't until we got to the finale. Now the finale, I feel like, though it follows the exact same like stuff as the other movies, this one, and I think I did say this in my review, maybe I didn't, but one of the things I love about Nightbreed is that when you get to the finale, it feels like there's just like an hour of carnage. And then when you got to the finale of the ultimate Cabal Cut, it is literally an hour of carnage. And every single shot, every single thing I think they filmed for this movie of stuff, basically B-roll, I think is included in this finale. And it goes on too long, unfortunately. And like I feel like it's too much of a good thing. It's really cool seeing these scenes that just I know haven't existed and haven't been seen by eyes for such a long time. And it is cool seeing some of these background characters really getting more development, at least in like either seeing them dying or putting up a fight. It's too much. It is too much. And it gets to the point where Decker and Boone are just like out of the action for so long because they're showing all of this B-roll of the different monsters defending Midian and like the townsfolk like shooting them, and just it goes on and on. And there's other times when it just feels like what are we even watching anymore? Like, who is the main character now? Like, didn't I just see this character already say this? Why are they over here now? Why are they covered in blood and then not covered in blood? Why is all this stuff going on? And it loses its context in just this extended finale. And this is where I really think the trims would come in handy. And that's exactly what they did. In the Cabal Cut, this was so much smoother. I felt that was too long, but like in hindsight, it really did come together a lot better than what we got with this ultimate Cabal Cut. Now, one thing I really did like is, well, I guess two things. One, they kept the detective, him like surviving Decker attacking him and then like helping out the monsters and just being really against killing these monsters from the beginning. I'm glad they kept that. And also was Decker's mask kind of being what's talking to him and driving him to kill. I feel like there was less of that, or at least it didn't pack as much of an emotional punch as in the Cabal Cut. But nevertheless, since it was in the original story, I'm glad they did include it. But the main thing I liked is one character I never enjoyed before was the priest, Ashbury. I feel like his character is just so underdeveloped, just thrown into the movie, and he really doesn't do anything besides just showing up there. Now, in this version, I think that he benefits the most, because when he shows up at Midian, he like understands that this is like a very holy ground. Whether or not it's his holy ground for his Christianity, he probably doesn't believe that, but he does understand that there's something going on here. And in the other stories, he just kind of wanders in, finds Baphomet in the ground, like underground, and then like bam, he's now like turned into a monster. In this version, he finds Boone, and Boone leads him in there. Now eventually Boone like is off having to do something else because something else comes up, but you really see Ashbury like he wants to be a part of this, and I feel like he gets so much more development, and it makes sense why he's going in there because he's led there. And then from there, I feel like you see so many more scenes of what he's experiencing, the people he sees, just the absolute wonder. And I feel like that's probably what should have been kept, but all this other extra stuff trimmed down a bit. But I did like that was included, because if we didn't get this ultimate Cabal Cut, we probably wouldn't have even seen that, and most people wouldn't really have gotten like that kind of more fuller arc to his character. So in conclusion, this really does play like the Cabal Cut, just a little too long. The Cabal Cut is better, but this is just so more readily available that this is the one that I would recommend if you can watch it, because it has pretty much all the footage you would want from the Cabal Cut and then some, which is too much. It would have benefited from so much edits, and honestly, it's probably the worst version of the four. Theatrical just feels more like a movie. This one is a work print. But I will say that since it's so more readily available and you do get to see a lot more footage than you do in the director's cut, I highly recommend seeking this out for any Nightbreed fan that you have out there. But just be prepared that it isn't going to be a coherent movie. It would have benefited from edits, being cleaned up. Just some scenes are just too bad. Like they're from a VHS. Some don't have audio. Like those just shouldn't be in the movie anymore. They should just be deleted scenes, if at anything. So it is the weakest version, but if you really wanted a Cabal Cut and can't find it because of how expensive it is, this is a very good alternative to it. But overall, the director's cut. That is the version you need to seek out, and that is really the only version you need. But to each their own. Well, what else I would say is going off Nightbreed for a moment. These started as these one-shot reviews where I would just focus on one thing, but I've since done 3 Nightbreed reviews, so I guess it's not really one shot anymore, and I am focusing on making short films at the moment instead of doing these reviews, so that's why not a lot of content's come out. But I wanted to make sure this got out for the anniversary of Nightbreed being released. And hopefully I do. Who knows if I end up getting this together in time. If you guys want to know more about Nightbreed and want me to continue this every year, I love Nightbreed so much. There are video games I haven't played, but there are a lot of comic books that I can really get into, and there's like some making of books. There's just a lot of extra stuff I can do, so I have plenty of ideas for future Nightbreed videos if you guys want them, and if you don't, well, then I won't put them out.